Hi everyone, it's Laura here, and today I'm going to share with you a clean and simple card that I created with the Spellbinders and Fun Stampers Journey Stamp of the Month kit for the month of February 2020. This month's stamp set is called Spring in the Desert, and it features some really beautiful floral images which follow the theme of the desert. So we have succulents, we have cacti, and then the set also features a range of really beautiful, encouraging sentiments, which I think will work great for any cards for a friend and really for any occasion. As always, with the stamp of the month, you get a mounted rubber stamp set where the individual stamps are already cut out, so you can just start creating right away, which I think is really convenient. For my card today, I started by doing some die cutting and I'm preparing the background and the focal panel of my card. I have some Bristol Smooth cardstock by Strathmore that I am die cutting first with an A2 sized rectangle die. This is from the Cascading Hearts Die Set by Fun Stampers Journey. And then I'm cutting a second panel to be slightly smaller than my first one. And for that I'm using one of the dies from the Spellbinders Lucky Clouds die set. To add a little bit of interest on my focal panel, I am using the circle die by Fun Stampers Journey. This is from the Circle Around die set, and I think it's a really cool die set because it has dies that cut circles and dies that just basically emboss or engrave a stitched detail, and I used one of those to create this focal area on my main panel. Next, I moved on and started working on my images. I picked most of the floral images in the Spring in the Desert stamp set, and I'm stamping them on some more Bristol Smooth cardstock because I'm going to be doing some coloring with my Arteza markers. For that reason, I'm using a hybrid ink for my stamping. Hybrid inks work with pretty much all mediums, so you're sure they're not going to bleed. And I really like the one by scrapbook.com because it's nice and black. I'm using my MISTI to do my stamping, and I have removed the foam insert because rubber stamps are a little bit thicker than clear stamps, and so to stamp correctly with your MISTI you need to remove the foam pad. I also flipped around my panel and I'm doing some more stamping because I always like to have more images to play with, and if I don't use them, I can always put them aside and use them on another project rather than figuring out at the end that I don't have enough to work with. As I mentioned, for my coloring, I'm using my Arteza markers, and the way I'm using them is I am blending them with a water brush. So basically I'm laying down the color in the shadow areas on my images, and then I'm coming in with a water brush that is filled with water and I'm blending the colors out. The coloring that I'm doing today is really simple. As I said, it's just a matter of adding my markers in the shadow areas and blending them out, and water markers allow for some really quick coloring, which is great when you have a lot of images or if you just don't want to spend too much time coloring. The Arteza markers are water-based markers, so you can blend them with each other or with some water. In this sense, they are very similar to the Zicklin Color Real Brush markers. They also have a very wide range of colors. I haven't swatched them all, but the ones that I've used so far looked really nice to me. The main difference that I noticed between the Arteza markers and the Zicklin Color Real Brush markers is the stiffness of the bristles. Zicklin Color Real Brush markers have softer bristles compared to the Arteza, which is obviously something that is up to personal preference. Softer bristles may be harder for you to control, or it might be your preference. I don't know if you do brush lettering. I wouldn't know because I don't do that. But I have enjoyed so far working with both. Again, I have tried my Artezas just a couple of times, but I wanted to give you my first impressions on these markers. They also have a great price point, and right now actually they are on sale on Amazon as I am recording this voiceover, so make sure to check the link in the description box down below because it's really a great deal you get for the full set of 96 markers. Back to the coloring, I just wanted to draw your attention to the fact that I am adding a little bit of purple on the tips of the succulent for a little bit more variation in my colors. And to do that, instead of going directly with my purple marker on paper, I scribbled it on top of my glass mat, and then I picked up the pigment with my water brush and I added it to my image. This way I can control the intensity a little bit better and I don't get a very bright result, which is not what I'm going for in this case. To be completely honest with you, I'm not a big expert when it comes to flowers, so I might have gotten some of the colors wrong, but I mostly went with what made sense and what I felt looked nice for the card I had in mind. For this flower here, I'm using a pink and I am adding again my color with my marker on the shadow areas, and then I'm using a water brush that is filled with water to blend out the color. If you don't like working with water brushes, you can just use a paintbrush that you dip in water, obviously it's up to you, but this made for a very quick coloring and I felt I could control the flow of this water brush pretty nicely. This one here in particular is also by Arteza and was included in the storage bag that I got with my markers back around Black Friday time. I also wanted to just mention that I'm not going to share the entire coloring. Actually, once I'm done with this flower, we're going to move back to the card making process. The colors that I used are the same that you've seen so far. I just didn't feel like we had to go through every single image today. And before we move on, I also wanted to let you know that you will find a list of all the supplies that were used today in the description box down below, and there you will also find a link to subscribe to this kit, which is a monthly kit. And if you subscribe in February, you will get the stamp set that I'm featuring in today's video. I finished the coloring off camera and then I cut out all the images, and at this point I am starting to arrange them on my design to see how I can put them down on my card in a way that looks pleasing. When I work with floral images, but with any images really, even when I build a scene, I always take this step. So before actually committing and gluing things down, I'm going to play around with them and change the position and configuration of the whole design until I find something that I think is appealing. At this point, I can go in with my liquid glue and I just pick flower by flower, coat the back with some glue and adhere it on my design. I like to use liquid glue because I have a little bit of time before the glue actually dries and I can use that time to move things around and position them exactly as I want. One thing you could also use is press and seal. I don't have it, but I've seen it featured in many videos and it seems really a useful tool when it comes to floral arrangements, and I will link to that in the description box down below too if you want to check it out. I'll have to get myself some as well. As you can see, I am basically creating a floral cluster on the left side of my card front, right inside that focal panel that I created with my stitched circle die. And then I can move on and start working on my sentiment. I have a black strip of cardstock that I positioned where I want it on my design. Nothing apart from the flowers is glued down yet. I'm going to ink up my stamp with my Midas ink in the color gold, and then I can close the lid of my MISTI to transfer the sentiment on my design. I'm also going to blend the same Midas ink on my background panel, the one that measures 4¼ by 5½ inches. So I'm going to have a golden border all around my card front that will tie in nicely with the sentiment and with some embellishments that I'm going to add in a little bit. And I really love these metallic pigment inks by Spectrum Noir. As you saw, you can use them to stamp sentiments or images. You can also use them to ink blend, and they are a really easy way to add some beautiful metallic accents to your cards. At this point, I could go ahead and adhere the focal panel on my background. Just make sure you don't have any ink on your hands and that your pigment ink is dry so that you don't risk staining your panel. It did happen to me on this card. It's not shown on video, but I just used a normal rubber eraser to remove the ink smudges and it worked perfectly. Obviously, you have to do it right away before your pigment ink dries, but it worked like a charm. As a last step, I decorated the card front using some gold foiled confetti and my embellishment wand. I'm using again Nuvo Deluxe adhesive to adhere them down, and this is the final result. Again, make sure to check the description box down below for a link to my blog and for a link to all the supplies that were used in today's card, including this monthly subscription kit by Spellbinders and Fun Stampers Journey. If you did enjoy this video, you can let me know by giving it a thumbs up and leaving a comment in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, you can subscribe for more card making and paper crafting inspiration. Thank you all so much for stopping by and have a great day.